Well, good morning. I'm Pete Najarian. This is the Take for Market Rebellion. Yes, it's hump day. And yes, we've got ourselves another very interesting market. Now, yesterday, we started off the day. We looked like we were going to be a very positive day, which we were. But the dislocation, once again, really did stand out. I mean, extraordinarily different yesterday. Now, what did we see? Well, we had a market that started off strong and then accelerated to the upside and then held on to about a 300-point gain for the majority of the day. And in the latter part of the day, we kind of eased back a little bit. And from that 300 level, finished up about 160 points. Still not a bad day, but the dislocation really came from when you look at what was going on with the NASDAQ. The NASDAQ completely a flip. The NASDAQ looked terrible for the majority of the day, and there were so many names contributing to this. So let's go through a little bit of the list of the underperformers yesterday. NASDAQ finished down about 70 points, call it. So you had Tesla, Zoom, Netflix, Apple, Amazon, Facebook, Microsoft, eBay, Adobe, and then just sprinkle in a whole bunch of the biotech. So that really was the difference maker yesterday, was what was really trading and moving to the upside. Even if it wasn't violently moving to the upside, a very big, broad participation. Like we talk about more and more about the broad participation to the upside when the NASDAQ's going to the upside, not just 4 or 5 stocks. This is exactly what we were seeing yesterday on this push to the downside, but a huge dislocation. Now, part of what was driving the Dow absolutely was energy. You look at Chevron and Exxon, they were powering as much as anything out there. Plus, now add in the industrials. We had Boeing, we had Raytheon, obviously Lockheed earnings. That really influenced what was going on there. But a pretty nice broad move in terms of the industrials as well, the Dow Industrials. So that was a nice big move to the upside. And with Exxon and Chevron, with oil trading above 42 yesterday, certainly powering the energy space just in general, not just those couple of names. But then you look now to the next level, and we talk about those beta names all the time. Really an absolute amazing day for many of those next tier names. When you look down, when you're looking and you see some of those names, you absolutely understand what I'm talking about. We've talked about this on many occasions in the past. By the way, some of the leaders yesterday also, I said it was a little bit more broad when we're looking at the Dow Industrials. How about JP Morgan, American Express, Travelers, all of those? The XLF up about 2% or so. So a big, nice sort of a broad move. Now they did pull back. Everything sort of pulled back, eased off of the highs towards the end of the day. But we've been talking about this move in gold, and we've seen gold as it moved up towards 1840. We also watched silver as silver has moved up, and yesterday got up over 2160. So pretty amazing just to watch some of the metals as they've been moving and kind of quietly, not really talked about a lot, especially when it comes to silver. And take a look at copper. We've talked about the $3 level for quite some time now. As a matter of fact, yesterday we had some great option activity in Freeport Mac later on in the day, FCX, looking for maybe a little bit more upside from where it is right now. So as we look at copper prices, you see those copper prices approaching or getting even over $3. That says something a lot about the industry and some of the demand as well. And the movement, just that upward movement that we've been talking about for quite a while now, where it's just been a slow, steady, but a nice solid move to the upside. Volatility, yeah, these markets continue to be in this next range of volatility, trading in a very tight range, actually, trading right around 24.5, call it. And that's sort of where the volatility index has kind of been of late. Now, earnings, there was a boost from earnings yesterday, no doubt about it. Early on, you had Lockheed, as I mentioned, and that actually got a nice little fuel underneath Boeing and Raytheon. But Coca-Cola, IBM, you look at those, they absolutely were part of what was powering us to the upside in a broader sense in terms of the markets. Now, that move to the downside when we look over there at the NASDAQ, that was pretty stunning. And that was something that we wanted to see. Is that going to be something day after day after day, or is this going to continue this movement back and forth? And obviously we're going to see how this plays out. But today I'm looking at the markets and I see NASDAQ actually up about 0.5%. I also see the Dow up just barely, about 30 or 40 points, and the S&P up about 0.25 point. So yes, the dislocation of the outperformance or underperformance of the NASDAQ relative to not moving in concert, but relative to that dislocation with the Dow Industrial certainly does stand out. Yesterday, about 27 million contracts were trading. That wasn't too bad, but we've been getting so used to seeing the 30 million that it still felt a little bit less and a little bit lighter than what we have been experiencing. And that's because we've had so many days well over 30 million contracts over the last couple of months, just that continuance. But 27 million, not so bad. Today we come in and what do we see? We see some pressure on the markets early on, that coming from the China trade tensions, and that certainly the consulate down in Houston, that sort of raised up a little bit of that tension level with China, no doubt about that. But on the flip side of that, you had Pfizer news, and the Pfizer news of this government approved the production level, and $1.95 billion could be potentially allocated over to Pfizer in this partnership that they've got if it's safe and effective. And so that's something that we'll all be watching very closely, because we all know vaccines, that really will be a major participant in these markets in terms of direction into the future. There's no doubt about that. So we started off the day very, very flat. Then we have a nice big spike, and all of a sudden the Dow is starting to sprint to the upside. Dow's now come back down. NASDAQ started to sprint to the upside. NASDAQ's come back a little bit now. It's up about 35 points. Not so bad. The strength in the Dow today, however, is, I mentioned Pfizer, Coke, McDonald's. You get the idea. Where's the weakness? Even though oil is still holding up, and it's not at 42 any longer. It's just a little bit below that, in the middle 41, somewhere in there. But you see the energy after that big spike, a little bit of an easing back. So that's really the up and the down parts of what's going on right now with the Dow. Now, as oil holds on to this 41.30 level, today you're seeing a little bit of pressure, as I mentioned. So the XLE's got some pressure on, down about 1.5%, somewhere in that sort of a range. OIH down a little bit more. We talk about that all the time, because those services names, but those are much more of the beta names that we talk about, the Diamondbacks of the world and Halliburtons and all of that. But healthcare really showing some strength, and healthcare really has been impressive, and obviously Pfizer being a big part of that. Financials showing a little bit more weakness today. Goldman Sachs, it's really interesting to see where Goldman Sachs was post-earnings and where it is right now, because that earnings delivery was spectacular. And JP Morgan had a very good earnings as well. They spiked up and over 100, but it's been very difficult for JP Morgan to hold above 100. It's trading right near 100 right now today. Had some option activity this past week, the last couple of days in JP Morgan, just for this week, those July 24th expiring. We talk about this all the time. That has been the dominating factor that we have seen time and time again, and more so as much this week as I have seen it, where the first 5, 6, 8, 10 different unusual option activities that we see, you're seeing a July 24th expiration. You might see something to July 31st, but all of that very, very short term. So this continues to be a trading market. And now that we've got these volatilities coming back once again, you can see it. The volumes that you see when you look at disclosures for a lot of us in the Market Rebellion, you're starting to see a lot more on the option side, lower volatility, and a little bit less on the stock side, because on the stock side, you're looking for those big whoosh moments, and those are the times where you're buying stock, and now you've got that implied volatility that you're selling option against. That way you can use the option. Now, as options have gotten a lot less expensive in many cases, there are many names out there, however, implied volatilities are still pretty high, especially those with huge catalysts like earnings, like Microsoft will be delivering tonight. Those implied volatilities, at least in the short-term options, certainly will be higher than normal. So that'll be something, and that's all part of the educational process that you've got to understand. By the way, local company Best Buy, did they knock it out of the park or what? I mean, absolutely. This was a home run type of a quarter. Absolutely impressive. They were up, the last I looked, about 5.5%, something like that. Still trading at a 17 PE. But this is a company, they talked about their online strength. They nearly tripled the sales, 255% to the upside for online sales. Computers, appliances, tablets, you name it. We all know about Best Buy and we know what they sell, but just absolutely an amazing quarter. So here's where we get the unusual option activity for today. By the way, yes, I'm in a shirt and tie. I'm a little bit more dressed up today. Why? I'll be on the halftime report. We got Jimmy Cramer on there as well. Scott Wapner's finally back from vacation, so that ought to be pretty fun. Got a lot of different things to cover. The earnings coming into today, as well as the earnings that are going to be coming out tonight or tomorrow morning. So there's a lot to cover, and obviously we're going to try to hit as much of that as we can. Microsoft, wow. Anyway, Nvidia, this name really stood out for me. There's a lot of different names today. I'm not kidding when I say it was difficult to choose, and I have to have a couple of those names that I'm going to use today for unusual option activity on the halftime report. But for today, for Market Rebellion, I got Nvidia. Now, again, sticking with the theme, when do these expire? They expire Friday, July 24th. Today, 22nd. We're at Wednesday. So it's a very, very short time frame. But they are buying the 430 strike calls, paid around $2 all the way up to about $3.50 for these options. Stock was trading about $4.19. Why do I always give the numbers of where things were? Because things do change. By the time you might be watching this, stock could be higher, stock could be lower, the options could be at a different price level, all those type of things. This is just to give you a little idea at the moment that I'm bringing it to you. So a couple of minutes ago, I was looking. Stock was trading actually $419.70 was the number, and they bought about 7,000 of these 430 strike calls that expire on Friday. And as I say, between $2 and about $3.50. So it gives you a little bit of a range of what we're looking at here. Texas Instruments came out. Obviously, they have a lot of exposure in a lot of different areas. One of those is automobiles. That was probably a little bit of a drag for Texas Instruments, but you're still seeing a lot of these semiconductors absolutely moving to the upside. We've talked about option activity in the SMH. We talked about it in AMD. We've talked about it in so many of the different names. But the unusual option activity continues to be something that is very, very heavy and more bullish, definitely more bullish than bearish in terms of what we've been seeing in the semiconductor area, especially in a name like Nvidia that just seems to be one of these names that just has a path higher all the time. It's just amazing sometimes, isn't it? We also got Tesla tonight, so be ready. Folks, have a great day of trading. I will see you at the halftime report. Hopefully you'll be watching that. Jimmy Cramer and a lot of different folks are going to be joining us for that. I'll tell you what, knowledge is king. You really have to understand it, and we got the best educators in the business over here at Market Rebellion. Giddy up, baby. Have a great day of trading.